Is it a good sign or a bad sign that nothing has happened yet?
I think it's a bad sign, Skip. We all played the game as a child. T-tag. Tag, you're it. Freeze. You can't go anywhere, Skip. And I believe that's what's going to happen to Dak. They're going to put the freeze tag on him again, which means inhibits his right as a free agent to go test the market. I don't get, Skip. You put the tag on him on July 15th of 2020. And here we are in March of 2021, and what? Was anybody not thinking, say, well, damn, if we don't get something done, we might be in the same situation again? What you should have done when Dak was heading into his third season, Skip, start working on a deal. Because just imagine if you had got a deal done for $34, $35 million. Now, what a bargain that would be. But you wait till the very last minute. And I told you, Skip, you can't wait till everybody else starts setting the market and expect Dak to come in like, oh, yeah, that's a good deal right now. No. Those guys got 3-4 years left on their deal, and they're getting $34, $35 million. So Dak says, hold on, I got no years left. I need more than that. I just don't get the Cowboys, what they're thinking is, Skip. That's what's befuddling to me, is that we find ourselves, well, I find myself talking about it, but they find themselves in the very predicament, Skip, they were in a year ago. Is that, okay, here's the tag. I mean, if they're going to tag him, they're going to give him a long-term deal. At this point, you know what Dak is asking for. Either you go like, well, Dak, this is where we can go or we can't. And I believe they're saying, Dak, they know what Dak wants, because Jane Slater mentions in her article, Skip, it was right up under Patrick Mahomes, 43, 44 million. We know Patrick Mahomes got 45 million. So there's a general indication of where Dak is kind of heading. I don't believe they're going to get anything done. They're going to put the tag on him. And guess what? It's going to be a long, drawn-out process again. And you and I going to come in here and you're going to talk about it, and you're going to throw your hands up in there and says, I don't know what my Cowboys are doing, because they had a whole year, actually they had a year and a half to figure this out, and for some reason, they still haven't got it figured out yet.
Okay, to answer Jenny's question, I'm still holding out hope that this is a good sign, that maybe they're actually negotiating. And Todd Archer of ESPN has reported that, according to multiple sources, they have had talks recently. Right. And the talks have been, quote, good and, quote, positive. Okay. So what's happening?
Oh, let's get, man, what you do this weekend? Man, I had a good time. Is everything okay? How's the family? Yeah. Family's good. Yeah. Are we talking long-term deal?
Or not.
Exactly.
Okay, so the clock ticks toward what you could say is kind of a phony deadline, because all you have to do is place the hold on him with, like you said, a tag you're it deal. It's like, okay, we are required by NFL rules. Right. We have to do this by 4 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow.
Correct.
You can continue to negotiate past that. Right. But it is kind of an artificial deadline that could make you both come to the table and say, this is dragging on too long. Right. Let's compromise. So I am hoping against hope that at 3 Eastern tomorrow, they announce a big long-term deal. 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Now, some people are speculating Dak will only want 3 years, because last year he wanted only 4 years. So is it down to just a 3-year deal?
It's short, pretty soon Dak only want a 2-year deal.
We're heading in that direction. I don't think that any deal is going to get announced. I think you're right that they will place yet another, this would be the second tag on him, at $37.7 million. But there is no way they will place a third on him a year from now, which would be $54 million. They're not going to do that.
Because that's, Skip, remember now, it's being reported that's what he wants the final year of his deal to be anyway. Okay. Is that he wants, 40 this, 40 this, 40 this, and then last year 50 plus.
Okay, I got it. My gut is he's on his way out of town, that he's about to play on a final year's deal. Yeah. And it's good money, man. That's 37.7. That'll work. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't feel cheated by that deal,
and
right?
no state taxes. No. But, Skip, don't you feel like at this point everybody is dug in and nobody wants to budge? It's like we're playing tug of war, and both sides are just like, we're exhausted, and can't nobody gain at look like what it seems to be an advantage.
Yes, I believe that happened. But you failed to note that back in September of 2019, this is going back a ways now. Right. Jerry Jones said after game number 1 at Jerry World, a win over then the woeful New York Football Giants. Right. He said a deal with Dak was imminent. Imminent. Yeah. And somebody said, imminent meaning what? And he said, hours, days. Yeah. He was talking about hours or days. Okay. That's imminent because he had just gotten Zeke to come home from Cabo to sign the biggest deal any running back in football had at the time. So Zeke was back in the fold. We thought a happy camper, wasn't going to quite live up to the deal. But Dak, we thought, was about to follow him in line and get a big new deal that would be worthy of how he had performed so far.
Right.
Well, guess what happened? He had a new agent named Todd France. And Todd France said, man, you played really well. Let's maybe wait a couple of weeks and see how you play next week at Washington. And he played great at Washington. Let's see one more week. Let's see how you play against Miami. Then they were the Pits, man. They were the worst team in the league at that point.
They were tanking for Tua at that point in time.
They were tanking for Tua. And they tanked for Dak, too, because Dak lit them up.
Yes.
So he had 3 weeks of the best football any quarterback had played against what you dismissed as garbage competition, right? But 3 weeks of that he had. And his agent is saying, wait a second, we didn't ask for enough money. Well, Jerry thought you had agreed on the money.
Right.
He thought you had a verbal handshake, kind of the way they do it in Texas and Arkansas, your word is your bond.
Right.
He thought you had that kind of deal, Todd, and you didn't.
You did not.
You jerked that old proverbial negotiating rug out from under a guy who doesn't want that rug jerked out from under him by anybody. And once you do that to him, it is hard to get him back to the table. Because he thought you had something that you agreed on and you didn't agree. So then everybody kept saying, well, Dak is betting on himself the rest of the year. What happened over the last 13 games? He did not live up to my lofty expectations for Dak's performance. He had a bunch of bad games. You gave him Fs for 7 out of those 13 games. And I thought he bet on himself and lost, at least in Jerry's eyes, because Jerry's saying, I'm supposed to give that money to that kid?
Right. But here's the thing, Skip. Remember, we're going to talk about options and choices. What are his options? And then I can tell you Jerry's choices. He has no options at this. Okay, you can go back with Andy Dalton. You can go back with Garrett Gilbert. You can go back with Ben Anthony DiNucci. So, Skip, options and choices. What are his options? Then I can tell you his choices.
Unless we have another, you could say artificial deadline, but it is looming for April 29th. What happens on that evening? The National Football League draft. Okay? So is it possible that Dallas, sitting with the 10th overall pick, says, you know what? We're doomed. We'll never get to any kind of compromise with Dak and his agent. They just want more money than we're willing to pay. Is it possible they either trade up, or is it possible they sit at 10 and one of those top 4 quarterbacks, you never know, might fall to you at 10? And I don't know which one they would fall in love with. Would Trey Lance fall to 10? I have no idea.
I mean, listen at Mel Kiper. The quarterbacks might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
They could. They well could. Is there another one out there laying in the weeds, another Dak Prescott that they have targeted and identified and said, that's our quarterback? I don't know. But it's possible they would say, we're going to draft a quarterback and we will have 1 year to allow him to learn under Dak, and then we're just going to have to let Dak go.
Skip, I would hope they wouldn't do that to Dak, because you've done that to him already, because you don't believe he's worth it. The only way you can get the true value of something is just, Skip, like an auction. Well, I don't think that thing is worth that. I mean, when they bring these, Tom Brady just had a car go for $1.4 million. Now, I'm sure somebody, man, that car ain't worth that. He said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it to auction. I'm going to take it to Sotheby's. I'm going to take it to Christie's, and I'm going to let people bid on it. And then whatever the market bears, that's what it's worth. Well, $1.4 million later, or the Luka Doncic. Skip, did you think anybody think Luka Doncic's car was going to get $4.6 million?
I'm lost on that one.
Well, people start bidding, and the next thing you know, and that's how free agency works, Skip. You're like, man, Dak ain't worth no $41 million. But then all of a sudden, somebody's like, hold on. We don't have a quarterback. We hadn't had a quarterback in a very long time. Dak, what is it going to take to get you to sign with us? His agent said this is going to take you 4 years, $180 million, and I'm going to need $90 million at the time of signing. Well, Dak got that, like JJ. Skip, people are still talking about it. How the hell did he get $14 million when he's played 38 of a possible 80 games over the last 5 years? How the hell did he get that kind of money? Well, he hit the market, and somebody bid for it. I don't know who they were bidding against, but Arizona bid for it.
It happens.
Exactly. So that's what Dak is wanting. It's easy to say it's not worth that when you don't have nothing else to value it against.
It's like once upon a time. Remember, Alex Rodriguez went to the Texas Rangers for $252 million?
Yes.
It was like light years beyond anything.
They have $100 million more than anybody else ever got.
Ever. And I did a lot of homework on that, and I know a lot of people who did a lot of homework. They were just betting against themselves.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Right.
Well, all it takes is one.
Right.
And if you want it for marquee value, we want to sign A-Rod, and because we haven't had anything quite like A-Rod in Dallas-Fort Worth, okay.
Right. And the same thing a couple of years later when it was the Yankees. They gave a raise of $275. Yeah. And it wasn't nobody. Huh? They had just saw what the Rangers did. 3 years, okay, yeah, you finished in last place. Mm-hmm. So I just think the thing with Dak is, Skip, it just appears to me from the outside looking in.
Yep.
Everybody has a number in mind. Jerry has a number in mind in which he wants to pay for something. Dak has a number in mind which he's willing to accept for something.
Yep.
And they haven't met. That's the problem. It doesn't seem like they're close.
Nope. This, to me, as a lifelong Dallas Cowboy fan, has become the most troubling story in my Cowboy watching life. Because, as you remember, I was the biggest Dak fan in the world.
Right.
And I'm losing my zeal for this day after day because it feels doomed to me.
Right.
It feels like he and his agent do want more than they're worth. And it feels like Jerry feels jilted and slighted, and it's bad blood. Mm-hmm. And it feels like it's going to be a lose-lose here, which will mean that Shannon wins, right?
Yeah, well, Skip, Dak had his John Q moment. He had a change of heart. Skip, we've all had things like, you know what? Somebody's like, I think I might have let this go too cheap. And then the person come back and come to pick it up. You're like, you know what? I was thinking, could you do an extra 10? Could you do an extra 20? It's we've all like all of us, because he was too quick. He said, yeah, real quick. I threw a number out. That's why you don't throw numbers out there, Skip. What you want for that? Well, you selling it. Tell me what you want for it. I might be giving you $30, $40 more than what you asking for it. Skip, when I was in Baltimore, I was selling my house. I was going with a free agent. I was selling my house, and the lady that Kevin Burns' wife was my real estate agent, and
Kevin Burns was the PR.
He was the president of PR at Baltimore. And I was like, well, what do you think? She's like, well, Shannon, let's list it at, I played a little over 300. She says, Shannon, let's list it at like 380. I'm like, 380 too? She's like, yeah. Skip, every bid I got was more than what I was asking for. So I was like, I kind of like this. Skip. I was like, well, you know, hey, let's go to like 415. I ended up selling like a little less than 400, but it just goes to show somebody wanted to buy it, but it was on the market. Dak says, well, let me get to the market, Jerry, and you can see what I'm worth. Either I'm worth this or I'm not. I'll come back to you. Jerry, you might come back and get Dak for $32 million. So you ain't get your 40, now you got to play for me for 32. But you got to let him see that.
By the way, your 400 right now here in L.A. wouldn't get you a utility shed.
No.
It would not, Skip.
Right?
I'd be sleeping in my car.
You would be.
400.
Then I got ridiculous. Skip, I was on the golf course. I was backed up on like the 13th hole. So that house now probably, Skip, $1.5 million.
Location.
Yeah, maybe you should have held on to it, Shannon. It would be worth probably over $1 billion at this point. Boy, okay. Well, they have until 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. We've been talking about it for months. We will be following this very closely and, of course, keep you updated.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.